Hello, and welcome to the $1 Million Electrician Podcast, where we help home service pros like you supercharge your business and spark up those sales.
I'm Joseph Lucani, and together with my co-host, Clay Newmeyer, we're here to share the secrets that have helped electricians sell over $1 million from a single service van.
Now, it's time for sales. It's time for scale. It's time to become $1 million electrician. All right, and welcome back. We've got Nathan here with us today. Nathan's coming off a massive month. Nathan, tell us, what's the record this month? How much did you do in sales?
I did $75,005 in sales this month.
Awesome. And now here's the surprise for everyone. How long have you been in business, brother?
I launched March 1st, and today's April 2nd. So
31
month.
Go ahead, Joe.
1 month and 1 day, and you've generated from, this is insane. I want everyone to hear this. He just started business, implemented the thing, and has a $75,000 month. Nathan, you are literally sucking down the nitrous at this point. This is full gas.
Well, I'm just showing up. That's all I got to do. So,
and like Joe always says, we're the GPS, but you're the one that's got to take the steps and go and make that drive, right? So you've clearly been taking those steps, man. And I personally want to congratulate you on a great first month.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Can I tell you guys a bit of a secret, though?
Sure.
Lay it on us.
There's something that happens when a brand new business is formed and they come to us for some support and some guidance in that. We know this process works, but let's face it, someone brand new to business, this is a fire hose, man. There's a lot going on, a lot that you had to go through to even do that. So we've got some questions today. We're going to break into this story with Nathan. We're going to learn all about how he went from 0 to 75. Was it 75K, or am I getting the number
Can't
wrong?
forget the $5. Hold on, you can't forget the $5 in the end.
0 to 75,000 in 31 days of business. This is remarkable. So Nathan, we're going to have to start a bit at the beginning. Tell us a bit about when you became an electrician and why you decided to go into business for yourself.
I've been an electrician off and on since 2009 for my previous employer. I was helping him when he was on the tools. And then I took a hiatus, tried a few things. And then back in 2017, he hired me on full time. And it just kind of took off from there. He even told me then, he said, I don't expect to have a leadership role for you. He said, I'm pretty well booked up there, but I'll give you all the hours you want and all the overtime you want. So I was in quite of a hole at that point. I worked 70, 75 hours a week for a year to get out of that hole.
Wow.
And he was gracious enough to give me those hours. But I got out of the hole, and just like anybody, when they get their head out of the water, they start looking around. So about 3 years ago, I had planned on going on my own. I'm glad I didn't, but I came to the employer's name is Mark, and I asked him, is there something that we can do that can grow? Is there something that I can be in control of? Basically, I just want you to count the money, was what I told him. And he said, well, he'll think about it. And we came up with something, ended up being generators at the time. And my first year with him, I had learned some marketing up to that point. My first year with him, I was responsible for 30% of his profit of his whole company.
Wow.
And it stayed that way for 3 years. And what was happening though, and this dawned on me the latter part of last year, is, to preface this, Mark is one of the best people that I know. He is the best boss I've ever had. I would even say he's better than the one I have right now, if I'm being honest.
Love that.
But I just found out at some point that the partnership wasn't going to get much bigger or better than what it was then. I had maxed out on what I was capable of doing by myself. And I was getting generators during the summer, during the hurricane season. And then those same people were calling me during the off season to do electrical work, or they'd say, hey, I know you're busy now, but if you can, when you can do electrical work, call me. And I was keeping myself busy. There was most of the time Mark didn't even know what I was doing. He just called me at the end of the day. So what'd you do today? And it dawned on me, and I asked a few people that I look up to, dawned on me that, maybe I should start building this for me instead of him.
Mm,
And that was December last year, early December last year. I mean, within 2 weeks of mentally deciding that, I didn't know when it was going to happen. I thought maybe in 6 months, a year, I'll go out on my own. And within 2 weeks, I found your guys' podcast.
Mhm.
And I have always, I've always felt like, and a lot of people can confirm this, that trades is the next big thing in the
Mhm.
economy,
mm,
if it isn't
Right.
already the big thing. But I'm surrounded by people who are doing trades. Some of them are doing it really well, and some of them, they're running the business. Some of it, sometimes the business is running them. And I was convinced if there was a a trade company married with a really good sales process, that you would have something pretty amazing.
Hmm.
And when I stumbled across y'all's podcast, I can't remember what the first one I listened to was, but I was y'all hooked me on the first podcast. Within probably six to 8 weeks, I had listened to every single one of them. I listened to a few of them 3 or 4 times. My wife was starting to get annoyed. It's like, okay, stop talking about the $1 million electrician. And but and then I was primed for you guys already, and I didn't have my master's electrician's license yet, so I was choked when I got in the first call with Austin. I said I'm on my road to get that license. I think that was December, late December, and he said,
Hmm.
"Well, unfortunately, I can't help you until you have a master's." So I was determined to pass my test on the first go. And so like the only thing that mattered to me in January was studying the material so that I could get the test, get the license so that I could join the team. And and I was able to do it, thank goodness. And I signed on with you guys about 2 weeks into February, and then my launch date was the first, and that's the rest is history. So
I'm
you want to
honestly so
start, Joe? You
fascinated.
can if
Yeah,
you want.
honestly, it's one of those things where I'm almost finding a loss of words because what you've done has been such major wins. And if you just evaluated them on their own, you've done so many really important things that a business owner needs to do to get to this point, and you've done it all in a very short period of time. Like, think about this. How many of us have actually passed our masters on the first time? I know I didn't. Like, it's a really hard thing to do, but you did it because your why was bigger. I need to do this. I got to get it done. I have to do it the first time. Then you went out and you also have the ability of doing 70-hour weeks. You've also gone and learned marketing. Like, you've done so many things by being able to say, I recognize the process and the company could work. So it's just really amazing seeing all the right pieces come together in one person because I could just see amazing things in your future with the trajectory that you're on.
thank you for that.
Yeah,
Truly a
I'm going to
pleasure.
make a comment on this too because I was picking up on some early things. I actually had to start taking notes, Nathan. I'm always looking for what makes the kind of person that we see succeed and then jump on a podcast, go from listening to everyone and jump on the podcast. And by the way, you're only really the second person we've had that Austin or I have turned away, gone and got a master's license, and then ended up on the podcast with a great story. The last one was Scott Hayes. I'm sure you've listened to Scott Hayes' story once or twice already as well. Shout out to Scott. He did great things as well. But for you to come in your first month do 75K, it's clear that that comes from, I heard grace. The
Mm.
gratitude when you speak, Nathan, is phenomenal. Even quoting Mark being a better boss than the one you have right now. The important thing about gratitude is it sets us in the right direction. It sets us in a place of positivity and looking forward and having faith to become more, be more, see more, do more, all of it. I also heard autonomy, though. Sounds like with your old employer, you really had kind of your own reins. You had this self motivated, able to work independent of Mark. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
And then I'm gonna comment on what Joe mentioned too, the 75-hour weeks.
Hmm.
That's not small. You're working 2 weeks in one. You mentioned your wife maybe coming after you for the podcast and talking about being $1 million electrician, but how does she feel about 75-hour weeks when you're working that hard?
We were in a, I mean, at the time, of course, I didn't do that for 5 years in a row. That was probably a 1.5, 2 year event. But at the time, we were both, my wife is amazing. She supports me in any avenue, good or bad. And we both knew what had to be done. And it just, she's been great. She definitely prefers what's happening right now to that, in short, in answer to your question.
Yeah.
But she's pretty cool. I mean, she supported me there. She supported me in previous endeavors that didn't work out. She supported me when I wanted to join you guys. She supported me not quite as aggressively, but she did support me when I moved up to silver with you guys. And I'm super grateful for the part she's played along the way. So I hope that answers
Amazing.
your question.
Yeah. Yeah, it does. So many of us would go even on to say, like, we wouldn't be where we are without our partners. I know I'm one of those individuals. You, Joe?
100%. Melanie is honestly, I can say that without Melanie in my life, I may not have been able to do the things that I've been able to do. And Melanie, if you're listening, I love you with all my heart.
Awesome. Nathan, sounds like you're in that club too, brother.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
You mentioned this moment of making a mental decision. What does that look like for you? It sounds like you were in this in between space and all of a sudden you just said, no, I've got to do this. I have to try on my own. What does that look like? What was the major catalyst? What changed there for you?
Okay, so this is a recording, so I'll answer it, but I it's a very small chance that Mark would ever hear this podcast, but there is a chance that he would. So do your best to spin this in a positive way if you can. But I had a conversation with him, and without giving you all the details, it dawned on me that I thought I was a partner in this endeavor with him. And it dawned on me in that conversation that I was not a partner, I was a well compensated employee. And when that clicked, I wasn't motivated to make it any better for him. And I don't know if that's exactly when I made the decision. It definitely started pushing me into that decision, whether it be to go work for someone else or do my own thing. But I sat down with a good friend of mine. His name is Benjamin Spack, and he's known me for a while. And I asked him, I said, Ben, do you think I should go out on my own? And he didn't even pause. He said, yes. He said, absolutely. He said,
Resounding
I don't
yes.
know I don't know why you haven't done it yet, Nathan. And I was like, well, okay, well, there's one. And then I go to a different
Mm-hmm.
friend. His name is William. His answer was the same and just as quick. And at some point, I have to start. I mean, if I'm hearing the answer, the same one that I had, like,
Mm-hmm.
okay. Typically, when I do make a choice and the choice is made in my head, I just go for it, regardless of what it is. The outcome's not always great, but I have to. It'll eat at me until I go nuts until I figure it out. And on the flip side, just like when in joining you guys, every part of your process I had to do to the best of my ability. I couldn't take some of it and throw some of it away. Like
Mm-hmm.
that's not why I bought in. It was because I needed what you guys offered. And so there's no reason for me to halfway do it. And so I mean that's a little bit more than what you asked for, but I hope that answers it.
I mean, that's a
Absolutely.
phenomenal answer. It's a phenomenal answer. And you know what? I think that last thing you said is a very strong indicator of success. Now, there's a silly way of saying it, and there's a serious way. Silly way is don't half-ass two things, whole-ass one thing. And realistically, what that means is you're right. Without knowing a system to its perfection, you won't know what to cut. And that's the thing. In order to learn it the right way, I have a why for every single word that's in there. And unless you knew all those whys, you wouldn't know what to remove. So the concept of saying, I'm doing it the way you're doing it, and once I have mastered it, then I can adjust it. That is the kind of mindset that you need in order to become a top tier professional, not just salesperson. A top tier professional says, I need to master what I need to do before I can change it. I love that.
100%. Can I answer that a little bit? Touch on
Please,
that?
by all means, by all means.
So you said, I'm drawing a blank all of a sudden, but
Talking about mastering
so
the process, 100%.
right.
Mhm.
So you said knowing the why behind every word that you say, that
Mhm.
that is important to me, and I do strive to understand those, but it wasn't, and I'm not trying to lift you guys up, but it's just true. It didn't take long to figure out your guys' why. So the why of the word you used didn't matter to me much, because the why of the reason y'all do this was already, resounding in me. So I
Wow.
think that's for what it's worth. So
That's
I
powerful.
mean, yeah, I got goosebumps. I'm not gonna lie. Like, Clay, you feeling them too? Like,
You gave a couple of vulnerable moments there, Nathan. We really appreciate that. Of course, people want to figure this stuff out. When I think about why people would want to listen to us, because we're no special people. We're just a couple of master electricians with business addictions, as we've said in the past. And really, it goes beyond the business, too, though. It's about helping people. And just like you're commenting, that is our why. We want to help lift other people up, because I haven't always felt in place out there either, nor has Joseph.
not at all.
By the sounds of it, nor have you. So I'm going to be vulnerable for a moment too, Nathan, and just say, you know what? What you just said about 100% just commitment to a process, the agreement you made with us when you came and just decided to, you know what, I'm going to do exactly what I say I'm going to do, which is everything. And then I'm going to just stick to the why of it. In a weird way, I think we actually needed to hear that today from someone. It's a really well-timed message. And I know you're just coming fresh off this win, and we didn't actually expect to even record this interview with you today. So we do believe everything happens for a reason. And I definitely think that these great things are happening to you for a reason, brother. It's starting to sound like a podcast exit, so I better be careful. Time for win of the week. What's the win of the week? It's Nathan. If you're just tuning in here now, halfway through the episode or a little bit into it anyway, Nathan, just over 75K in your first 30 days of business. This is massive, brother. So you've taken us through this mental decision and why you decided to go on your own. You also said something that's pretty important, and I'd like to explore it for a moment, if that's okay. And this is open for all of us to answer this question. Why is it that we feel we need our friends to tell us if we should start a business or not?
Ooh. Well, I can tell you what I do with mine. At the end of the day, we can only recognize that we have the viewpoints and the view lenses that we do. Like, I can only see the world through the lens that I am in and I can see. And I recognize that about myself. And I may have a great view, but it's not 360 degrees and it's not 30,000 feet up. So the people that I go to are my closest friends, because they complement my weak spots. And together, I can look at it and say, like, I can go to my friend Chris or Pete or Josh or Melanie. Like, all these people can see the world differently than I do. And when I confer with them and we're all agreeing in the right direction, I know I'm seeing the total picture and I feel more confident. And that confidence allows me to continue to drive.
for sure. Yeah, Ben is my friend, and he's also my devil's advocate. If I ever
Mm.
if I ever need somebody to disagree with me, he's the one I call.
That's a good friend.
So
That's a good friend.
I think he's a very good friend. So
I'm glad you brought that up. My partner Mariel, she always says that one of her best friends does that same thing for her. So I'm glad that you mentioned that. That devil's advocate role is important. Not just someone to be a yes man or gal or whoever, but someone to challenge you on your thinking. And Ben's the one that, without a doubt, was immediate. Yeah, you should do your own thing, right?
yes.
Okay. Very cool. So at that point, you get a couple yeses. You're looking to start your own business. What's in the way for you? And I'm going to call special attention to something that I think you even ask questions on right away. And so many others hinder on this one thing. And it's, where is the work going to come from? Who are my leads? Where are they? Was there anything else that you had struggled with at that time? Were leads a challenge for you? Can you shed some light on that?
I have been in marketing for a long time in one way or another. I had gained a lot of experience with that, with building the generator business. And I built a lot of good relationships along the way, even with those customers. And I didn't call those customers. I didn't think that would be fair to Mark, but at some point they called me and referred their friends. And I am a part of a networking group called BNI and built some really good relationships with them. I was in BNI for the generator business, so the
Mhm.
relationships were already there when I moved into my own business, and everybody in the room was rooting for that. People like a underdog story, you know,
Mhm.
and
Agreed.
so I gained some from that. Some of it was a couple of it was just random phone calls. I did the Good Neighbor program. They all came from different sources. It was all organic though. Facebook. I had a friend of mine. This was not of the blue. She posted one day and she said, "These are all the people I use just in case anybody wants to know." And she actually forgot my name. So I texted her. I texted her immediately. I said, "Who's your electrician?" You know, big question mark, exclamation point. And she goes, "Oh, I'm sorry." And then she put it on there. And then I got 2 leads from that, just from paying attention. And you just never really know where they're going to come from. Just keep pulling from every direction that you can.
Mhm.
We have this
And
saying, and it's on our action leads now list, and it goes like this: more conversations equals more work. Do you believe that's true, Nathan?
100%, yes. More conversations and taking advantage of the conversations that you get. So you could easily just do the simple thing, or you could actually continue the conversation, offer more options, and see what happens, which happened a lot this month.
Incredible. Did you have any other concerns going into business where you thought, this is a hold point, this is a constraint, this is a bottleneck, something that's not letting me move forward? Or was it smooth sailing from there?
Nothing smooth sailing, but I felt like I had all the tools that I needed. I had all the support that I needed, more than what I could have asked for. The fear was getting leads. I was so convinced that the process worked that I knew if I could get leads, I could sell.
Mhm.
And the typical fears that go with starting a business is, am I going to fall flat on my face? How long can I go if I don't get a sale? And then there's the up and downs of it's just me right now. So you make a sale, that feels great. Now you got to do the work, and while you're doing the work, you're not making any more sales, so you start getting down, and then you go make a sale, and it's just an emotional roller coaster. So I don't know. I learned a lot about myself this month. So
I love
You
that.
know, I was
Go
gonna say
ahead,
the
Joe.
things that you've learned. Yeah, I was gonna say you learning about yourself. Like, I think more people are gonna want to learn about you after this interview. I'm not gonna lie, you've got something special. You really do have something special, man.
thank you.
So you're learning about yourself, you're learning your limitations. One of the things that's really interesting about this interview is we've barely had time to even process what made up that $75,000. Can we go a bit into your big month and how it became such a great month for you?
Sure.
All right. So would you say that this was like one $70,000 sale and 10 $500 sales, or
No,
is there
definitely
some
not.
significant ones in the mix along with some basics? Tell us a bit about your sales experience this month so far.
Well, I'll start with the one that I was the most proud of. There was a lady that I went to go see. Her name was Kelly Herr, and she wanted me to add 2 plugs and a doorbell to her house. And when I showed up, I just we went to the panel, we looked at some things. On her panel, she had a Federal Pacific panel inside of a laundry closet. Not a laundry room, a laundry closet.
Mm,
And
Mm.
and it had no cover on it. No cover was nowhere to be found.
Naturally.
And the dryer was right beside it. And everybody knows that dryer lint is the most flammable thing in your house, it seems, other than natural gas. And the dryer wasn't connected to its vent. So the Federal Pacific panel was covered in dryer lint, and so was the entire room. And everything within me not to address it right then. We just continued to talk, continued to move past it, walk through the play, and it ended up being a 2 opportunity close. So second opportunity,
Mm.
when I called her, she wasn't able to meet me originally. It was her husband. When I called her, she said she's not gonna be able to meet. They do the run around, and finally we were able to meet. But leading up to that point, I was talking to my friend Ben, And I said, Ben, I said, I find myself at a place where I really need to do this correctly, not for me, not for the sale, but to keep them safe. And I didn't realize that about me until I was in that moment. I was like, Ben, I hope they pick at least this option so that I can walk away knowing that that house is at least in a better place than it was. So I spent a lot of time. I role played with my wife. I role played with Ben, all for the reason of making sure that I didn't leave anything on the table and for them. And it went really well. They didn't pick the top option. The top option was a complete rewire, but at least they now have an emergency shut-off system, not in their laundry room, not covered in lint. They have smoke alarms now, and I feel much better walking away from that. And that ended up being a $10,000 sale.
That's
But
amazing.
what I was most proud of from that one, because somewhere along the way I found out about me that I didn't care about the money more than I cared about keeping them safe. So that was a really cool moment.
That's
You basically
incredible.
discover yourself, you know, like the fact that you didn't know that about yourself. It's almost like fire determines the crucible strength. You need in order to make steel, you have to cook it to an extent where you remove the iron and all the carbon from it. You literally went into your situation where you put yourself into a crucible and you came out with steel. That's very impressive.
You said something really, really important there, and I want to call attention to it if I can. And it was the moment where you realized the hazard here. Why didn't you just tell her when you first saw it?
Mm-hmm.
Well,
I want to hear this one.
You're on the spot. I know
well
this
the
is new to
short
you, but something was telling you, hey, I can't say this now, and there's a reason for that.
well the short answer is I know I'm not supposed to.
Okay.
But the based on what you guys have taught, but maybe I may, and I don't know if it's true, but maybe the why began there. But I knew that it had to be fixed, and I was my typical gut reaction to anything is if I don't know the answer, or if I don't know the best way to approach something, I don't say anything at all. Sometimes it's a good thing, sometimes it's a bad thing. But I've lost arguments because of that, which drive me crazy. But I knew that if that is something that I could address, I need to do it correctly, and then bring it all up later so that it doesn't feel like an upsell, so that I can give them the six options so they don't feel upsold. They just
Mm-hmm.
see a clear-cut way to address it. It just so happened that you had went over a six option close for a very similar thing with Raul a week before that in a bronze
Mm.
support class. I listened to that probably six times, Joe. I was determined to get that articulation as close to it as I could. And so I guess the reason was to make sure that when I did bring it up, I did it the right way.
I want to jump all over this. First off, I every time you're saying something, I'm just so happy. But can I tell you the reason why? I'm sure people are asking, wondering why.
Sure.
So imagine this from the reverse situation, right? You're this customer. All you've done is called someone for two plugs and a doorbell. And the first thing that they ask for is they want to go see your panel. Okay, for a customer's mind, if you can't articulate it the right way, they have no idea why, right? Or the second thing is that the moment that the electrician sees it, in this customer's perspective, imagine they go, oh, well, what do we have here? Do you know this is a fire hazard? Do you know that you've covered it in lint? Do you know this is a danger? And this customer now feels pressure. They feel pressure to make a decision. They feel pressure to move on this immediately. They have to understand if the electrician is not actually being truthful with them. So it's a very critical moment in this customer's mind. And if you do it the wrong way, even your best intentions, like this is a known fire hazard, you know it's going to burn. It's not if, it's when it's going to burn. And this customer doesn't know that. So if you actually do it the right way, which you did, you can control the flow of the information so that you can control the emotion and keep it from expanding beyond what it should be. You can talk to the customer in a way that's non-threatening. You can do so in a way that's non-pushy. And as a result, you can have happier customers moving on larger projects without feeling like there was an ulterior motive to make these suggestions. So you did all the things, maybe not knowing why you did it, but the result was very clear.
Yeah, for sure. It's a lot like trying to help a wild animal. The intention's fine, but if you do it incorrectly, you're going to get bit.
Exactly.
Yep.
There's actually an expression with that. There's someone who ended up picking up had a snake fall into a fire, and the man reached out into the fire to pull out the snake, and the snake bit him. And his friend said to him, "Well, why would you ever reach the snake? Like, why aren't you mad that he bit you?" Well, it's in the nature of the snake to bite, and it's in the nature of me to help. We're just being the way we are.
Yep. I love that. Unfortunately, to help, we can't necessarily make strong recommendations.
Right.
Influence doesn't rush.
Mm-hmm.
Influence is never rushed, even. It has to be slow and calculated and methodical. And Nathan, it sounds like you put in a ton of effort to help that person. Mm-hmm. I hope you got a 5-star review for that one, because you certainly deserve it, my friend.
Amen to that. I mean.
Yeah. Were there any other notable sales throughout the month?
There was one that I thought was pretty cool. I went on a generator maintenance call. I asked Joseph a question in the bronze support maybe a week before that on the best way to approach, a generator maintenance. I don't know if you remember, Joseph, but
I do actually remember this conversation. This is a good one.
And I did it as I did it exactly the way you told me to do it. I did the load test. We walked through the house, checked major connections in the house. She ended up having some GFIs in the right place, some not. She had some open wiring, an old panel that was past its due date. And she looked at it and she goes, "Well, we need to fix this. So yeah, let's do it all, And I was actually for some reason, very, very afraid of that one, because I was just there to do a maintenance call. But in spite of the fear, like, I have a strange psyche. If I'm afraid of something, I usually run right at it and hope for the best. That's the reason I said yes to the podcast, and I did it today because I was scared of it. So here we are.
You have a story that's worth sharing, and I actually want to get into the situation that you're saying I was scared of it, because I've been in those situations, and that emotion is so interesting, because you're right. You did just go there for a maintenance. It was a $300 or $400 ticket, right? Maybe you're lucky if you sell the next year's service. But what was the ticket on what you sold?
$47.80.
Okay. So you 10x the sale that it could have been, right? And it was such an unusual circumstance that you became afraid of it. That's actually a critical moment, because what it's doing for you is it's showing you the possibility of simply offering it. You didn't push it. You simply said, "This is what I'm seeing. You have complete control of what you'd like to do. How would you like to proceed with this?" And the customer was able to be safer, more comfortable, have better peace of mind. What would have happened if you didn't even offer the options? Wouldn't that have been, that would have been a bigger crime?
Agreed.
It's really amazing. I love that you did the thing you did.
10x. That's awesome. Really good stuff. So you had a couple of great sales, great experiences, and that coming from even a maintenance call and upgrading to that level clearly means that you're providing that level of value and intent with every customer. It's only a matter of time, Nathan. Let me ask you a hard question, though. At this point, knowing what you know now, you're a month in, having exceeded $75,000 in your first month. Do you think you could have done it better? If you could go back and change anything, would you?
You talking about the month based on how refined my process was, or before you guys? Like,
yep.
What do you mean?
Yep. Let's start with the month. And if there's something before us, then go into that too.
There's a couple. Well, in the first week, I learned how valuable value articulation was, because I found out that I had two customers that were it left me very uncomfortable with what they ended up choosing. They had a lot more things they should have picked, but because I didn't articulate it correctly, they went with a cheaper option, and I felt responsible for them because I didn't do it correctly. And once I wish I could go back and do those again, mainly not even because I want them to pick something better, just so I know that I gave them the best of me, and then they made a decision based on that. But that I would say that's the thing that I would definitely go back and change for the month.
I don't want to take your momentum for the next thing, but the cool thing is you can actually go back and redo this. That's the best thing about what we do. When you offer your lifetime craftsmanship guarantee, you can come back in 6 months to a year and say, listen, I've guaranteed what we've done for life. All I ask is that I come back to inspect the connections and ensure that there's nothing changed from thermal heat or just from whatever conditions there are.
Right.
And now you come back and you're in the home of the customer doing the tests. And you can even ask a question like, hey, I'm really grateful to have the opportunity to serve you with this. Actually, I've been thinking about this, if you don't mind. Can I ask you a question? I know initially when we discussed, addressing your main electrical system, we had talked about you not having electronics protection. I don't really remember, but can you tell me why you chose not to have that taken care of? And now
That's a
you're
great question.
reintroducing
Yeah.
a conversation in an authentic way with them having clear value, whether you've sold them something or not. Because either they're still going to be guaranteed a lifetime guarantee, or they now have something else to kick around in their heads to say, why did I say no to that? That does make sense to have. And you go, well, I have the options right here. I say save them from last year because we honored this agreement. How would you like to proceed?
I love that.
Awesome.
Really good stuff. And so, Nathan, just to get clarity on that, if you could go back to that, what would you change? Just how you present your options better? Or is there anything else?
Observations is what I would change better. Yes, I guess options too, because you read that top option and you have to say, this is what we're doing, and this is why we're doing this. This is what we're doing. This is why we're doing this. I more or less just read it like a script. I embellished a little bit, but it forced me to also really focus on why those things were important. Like suffice it to say, and embarrassingly, I didn't know why gas ground was important before I started this. So it's like,
Mm,
and so now I know exactly why gas ground is important, which made me a better electrician, and now I can relate to the customer better. But I guess observations, articulating it to where they can see why I'm bringing it up, why it's important, and then reading it to them and saying why it's related to the things that we talked about in the observations.
that is 100% right. Really, when you're saying that last thing you said is to tie to everything. If the customer can see why you're offering it, but why it's related to the thing that they called you for, it's not an upsell.
Right.
Because that's the biggest fear that someone has. He came to my home. I asked him for this. I asked him for an outlet. He sold me a generator. Right? Like no one wants to feel like that. But if you're like,
Right.
listen, I was tuning up your generator, and naturally I'm inspecting the gas because it's powering your generator. Well, I'm doing a thorough check, and I found you didn't have a major safety system attached to it. Is it wrong of me to at least bring it to your attention? You don't have to buy it, but I can at least bring it to your attention. How is that pushy? Like there's no shame in it. I love it. I love what you're
That's my
doing.
that's my favorite question that you ask. Is it wrong of me to bring it up, or is it wrong of me to ask?
Because what's
I
usually the
use that
answer you
all the
get?
time.
What's the answer you usually get when you ask it, though?
Oh, they said no, of course not.
Bingo.
But of course, my wife hates it when I ask her the question now. So thank you for that.
If it makes you feel better, I relate with that concept where you're talking about your wife can be frustrated with you. I have an obsession with sales and psychology and theology and like all these things. And I talk to my wife about it constantly. So when I was training and coming up and doing everything, my wife would literally be like, listen, turn off the podcast, turn off the recording, unplug, throw the CD out the window. Like, we got to stop talking about sales now. So, you know what? May that be the biggest problem you have is that you can talk about how frustrated your wife was that you were so interested in growing. Good
Great
stories
way
to
to
tell
put
in the
that.
future, man.
And it seemed like we triggered a memory of something else, maybe an answer for something else. Is there anything before the program that you're feeling you wish you would have done differently?
Before the program, I guess the only thing different is I wish I would have started investing in myself sooner. And the simple answer would be to find you guys sooner. But nothing comes to mind.
All right. Well, that was something
Fair.
that was good enough. So, Nathan, now let's turn this outward and look towards someone else. If your friend Ben or someone similar who's an electrician comes to you, in fact, I think someone just did, but without going into names, they come to you. What would you suggest for them to get started in business and to improve themselves?
Invest in themselves as quickly as possible. I mean, I know a lot of electrical things, but I don't know anything about business. And
Mm-hmm.
it took some time to find the right people to invest in. I mean, did look around, for like a minute, but I don't know, find somebody that you believe in and just copy and paste. It's really that simple. I would love to have a long theological answer to that, but I think it's really that simple. So
No, I appreciate that. And I appreciate the simplicity of it. And this isn't about a plug for us. I love what you're saying because we've both invested in ourselves to the nth degree as well. At this point, I think I'm $250,000 in investments between our different businesses and history. So, can you help us with a question though? Obviously, if someone's listening to this, maybe they're already onto our stuff, but if they're just listening for the first time, how did you make that decision? If you looked elsewhere, not to say any names or anything, but what made you decide to come this way with us?
it is a hard question. It's forcing me to answer it though. So like I said earlier, I didn't know about myself that I actually did care about people's safety, which sounds horrible to say out loud, but I was drawn to the fact that you guys did. And once I found out why you guys did what you did, it was people like just say to your answer of people that are in the program, don't don't meet any part of the process with any of your own ideas because you guys already figured it out. I mean, just implement and then respond and then change things if you want to. But I that's the best answer I have for you, Clay. I'm sorry if it's not what you're looking for.
Don't apologize, man. It's
Not a
not
bad
about
answer
looking,
at
it's
all.
about your authentic point of view. We learn from you as much as you learn from us, right? So, and what's your experience, just quick, been in the community so far? I know you mentioned borrowing some highlights that were meant for Raul at one point and watching some of that class time a half dozen times to practice with. Have you been able to integrate with some of the community? What's your feeling there so far?
Could you rephrase the question if you don't mind?
Sure, sure. Since joining the program, I know you've only been in it for about a month. Have you been able to maybe strike some different relationships, or how has the community been a part of your growth so far?
I think it definitely helps seeing other people struggle and find themselves, from my point of view to theirs, being having access to that many electricians that are all trying to do the same thing and seeing what works and what doesn't has been super helpful. There's a bit of a healthy competitiveness that helps me, which kind of keeps me accountable in some ways. I really appreciate that. I didn't expect that part of it. Sometimes people ask questions that I didn't expect and that I needed to know the answer to. That's been helpful.
You don't know what you don't
Um,
know until you don't know it.
of course. Yeah, that's
All right.
where I can take it right now.
I've got one more question for you. You mentioned an upgrade to silver. We're super excited to have you there with us. What are you most excited about for going to the silver level? Why is that important to you?
You said this is recorded, so I don't want to offend anybody, but what sold me, which I was pretty much already sold when I talked to Raina last Thursday, I think it was Thursday, which I expected the caliber of people and the caliber of businessmen that would be willing to spend that much money on themselves are probably going to ask more interesting questions and have a lot more to offer. I hate that answer because of what it might appear like I think about the bronze, but it's just the true answer. There were definitely high caliber people in both, but I just expected more in the silver. My gut reaction is to say, am I wrong for that, Joe?
You're definitely
No,
not.
you're not
I'm gonna
wrong. You're not wrong to ask.
I'm
Man,
gonna
the
answer
man's
this one.
spitting my own lines at me. That's awesome.
I can tell that you don't want to offend anyone, and I don't think you did. I think that's wise, and I think that's why we rise up in the programs we're in too. In the program that we're currently a part of at our coaches, we're at their elite level, which is their gold level. And it's true, the class size shrinks a bit. The intent is higher because these people have spent more on themselves, and anyone who's willing to invest that much in themselves, I think you're right, Nathan, is someone worth being in a room with and seeing what they know and what they're experiencing. So we're super proud of you, brother. We couldn't be happier with your progress. We're surprised by this call on our calendar so soon. We're surprised by your 75K first month in business. All good things. We're just so happy. Joe, do you want to add anything to that?
I mean, I feel like I've been sharing praise throughout the entire session, but I don't want this session to end without you really conceptualizing and taking this in personally. Is that you have something special. And the thing that's special is so many of us can be motivated by money, right? Isn't it just said that money is the root of all evil? Like, but the thing that you've continued to point at every single time was, I didn't know this about myself, but I care more about helping people than I do about the money. And that has been not something you've just said. It's something that's very clearly a value that you have because it's come up in multiple different situations and scenarios. If you can continue that and operating at that level, you'll be able to create something that no one will touch because your why will be so pure and so strong that no one, not even your competitors, could refute you.
Super
I appreciate
powerful.
that.
Anything else you wanted to add, Nathan, to this episode before I wrap us up with some big updates that people are going to want to hear?
I just want to thank you guys for what you do. I couldn't do it without y'all.
We may be the GPS, but you took the wheel. You were the one who did the things, man.
Joe,
I
you
appreciate
keep
it as much
saying
as
that,
well.
and you keep saying that in all the support meetings. You say, I'm just the GPS. You guys do what you want. But typically, you put the destination in your GPS. If you don't follow it, you're not going to get there. So I always think it's an ironic statement that you say.
You know, well, I appreciate that. That's good context. That's good context. Pretty much, it means you have to take action on the advice. The
Of
advice can be
course.
great,
Yeah,
but if you don't turn right, you end up going straight.
of course.
Very humble approach. Thank you so much, Nathan. New and exciting stuff, guys. We've got a ton coming in the podcast. We've got a ton coming up in form of our SLE app is going to be in the App Store here in just the early stages of May. It's been delayed a couple of times, but on that, we're already loading this thing with different calculators, different tools, resources that we share in the program. Speaking of resources, for the first time ever, we've released pretty well a whole class, actually, with another client that you guys know from the podcast, Dorian, at the gold level, a full zero AI call review, objection handle. Joe first role plays it. Then Dorian actually blows us all away by, in some ways, beating Joe and causing Joe to buy from him, or at least set that next appointment, which was awesome. And some great mindset stuff there about becoming a multiple seven figures electrician in service. On top of that, one of our former clients is moving overseas, has actually shut his shop down, pulled the wraps off the vans, wasn't able to find a buyer that he trusted, just like Nathan said today. Edwin Castro. And so we're going to have Edwin back on the show, and he's going to talk to us live from Romania about why he decided to shut it down, get his license over there, and make these massive life changes. And of course, we're in support of this because business is what fuels all of this growth, no matter where we decide to take it. On top of that, we've got our new coach, Jacob, going to join us, not just for an intro, but we've got another episode where we're going to break down the Klein Circuit Analyzer and go deep on the tech, the sales aspects of it, and how to not use this device for evil, which we start to hear is happening in the marketplace, and where this device is reliable and where it's maybe not so much. So we're going to go deep on that for an entire episode and so much more, you guys. So please come back. Please join us. Please reach out wherever you heard us first. Like, subscribe, leave a review, and share it with an electrician you know. And if you want that class, that 35-minute video we're sending out, just comment class wherever you heard this first. And we can't wait to see you again next week.
Take care. Be blessed. Can't wait to see you soon.
And that's a wrap for today's episode of the $1 Million Electrician Podcast.
We hope you're buzzing with new ideas that charged up to take your business to the next level.
So don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share the show with fellow electricians. Together, we'll keep the current flowing.